Hello, I'm going to do a video today on how to play faster on Magic Online. I think probably most people who play Magic Online will already know the majority of this stuff, but maybe I can help people out. So what I'm going to start with is the stops. So I have lots of stops because I like to I don't want to like be messing with it in the game. Like I don't want to have to unlock this and like add stops for random things that are happening in the game. Um, and I think I use all these stops somewhat reasonably often. You could add a draw step on your own turn. I actually do sometimes add this. This is the one that I don't use it very much, but if you play like Rashad Port, you're going to have to probably turn this on. I don't really play that card very much. Um, there's a couple, there's some instances where you will want this to have this on. Um, but I think the most important thing is to just have stops that you have good muscle memory with, so that you're not constantly messing with them and you don't have to change them very much. And you just always have a good feeling for when the game is going to stop you and when you need to be pressing OK and like F1, F2. And then the other thing is the hotkeys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So you should be, for the most part, not using your mouse um, for most of the game. Um, so like instead of pressing OK, you should be pressing 1. Um, and at the start of every game, assuming you're playing Pauper and you're not playing Snuff Out in your deck, you can just turn on this no possible play yield all, and then it'll make the game play way faster. Um, if you're playing like a Force of Will format, then you can't really use this. But or if you're playing a deck with Snuff Out, you can't really use this because it gives away free information. But with a deck like Coggates or Familiars or you know, I don't know, mono red maybe not because you have Fire Blast in your deck. You just have to keep in mind like if you have free spells in your deck, you maybe want to toggle this off, or like maybe you can leave this on until you draw or until you get a Black Source in play if you're playing a Snuff Out deck, and you can turn it off so that your opponents don't get free information. Um, but for a lot of the decks I play in Pauper, I just turn it on. And then um, the other thing is using the hotkeys. Um, so here I have a tap land, so it's obviously not gonna it's not gonna be a huge deal, but um, or it's gonna automatically pass me through the turn. But let's say I play an island, and I want to hold up this counterspell, but I don't want my opponent to know that I have a counterspell. So I'm gonna pass to my opponent's turn by pressing 2, so that it skips through everything. I don't have to like 1 through all these. So now I'm on my opponent's upkeep. And I'm gonna press 2. And what's gonna happen is um, my opponent, if they don't do anything, if they just play a land and pass, then I'm not even going to get priority once. It's just going to pass through the entire turn. But if they play a spell, then it's going to give me priority to use the counter spell. So I press 2, and then my opponent's going to like play their land, and they pass. And then, oh, I said I have to press 2 again for some reason because they played their land. But if you just press 2 again, it'll just skip through everything. So you're not like pressing 1 over and over again. So the F2 is really useful, especially if you're playing a deck with counterspells or whatever. You can sort of mask what you have in your hand by just going to their upkeep and then pressing 2, so that it passes through their entire turn without giving you priority unless they cast a spell. Because what you can do commonly is like, let's say I think my opponent might have I don't know, a spell pierce here or something. What I can do is go to my turn and then swap phases. So I just press, for some reason it's not working. So I press OK here, and then if I got this screen where my opponent now has priority, now I know that they are not F6 and they could have a counterspell. But if it just swaps to main phase 2 immediately, then I know that for a fact that they don't have a counterspell. And so being able to use the 2 key sort of masks what you have in your hand in some cases. And then another tip is, like, let's say I'm playing versus Blitz, and I don't want them to know that I have a kill spell or a bounce spell or whatever. What you do is you right click here, or you can right click on any of the steps here, but you go block, yield until here, and what this will do is it will yield, it'll act like you're F6 all the way up until blocks. So you can sort of bluff being F6 to your opponent. So maybe the Blitz player goes like pump spell, Temur Battle Rage to try to kill you because they think you're F6'd. And then you just get priority right before damage, and you can just bounce the creature and blow them out. It's sort of like bluff being F6'd against them. Another thing you can do is like fake cast spells that you don't actually have the mana for when you have priority, so that your opponent sees that you're paying for something. Let's see if I can do that here. Okay, so now what I can do is I can say, click here, and then it says paying costs. for the opponent. And I don't actually have the mana to cast this. My opponent doesn't necessarily know that. So that you can sort of bluff, like let's say my opponent casts a spell. I could left click on Prismatic Strands. It would then say that I'm paying costs. My opponent would be like, oh, he has a counterspell, but he's choosing not to use it. And I just say cancel. And be like, okay, they decided not to use their counterspell on my spell. So you can sort of bluff having stuff like that. The other thing is you need to turn on, where is it? Right here. You need to turn on enable animations. You need to keep this turned off because it's gonna like waste a lot of time. And then also using the the 3 and 4 keys for yes and no instead of left clicking on the left side of the screen here. And then you can also use 6 when you actually have nothing. Or when you want to save time, you can press 6. And you can also un F6 by pressing 5. So like the same situation where the blitz player has something. You can press 6 to make them think you're F6'd, and then right before, assuming you have a good internet, right before they cast their spell, you can press 5 and then counter their spell, to bluff having nothing. And then let's see what else. Anything else in game? I'm trying to think. Oh yeah, always just like yield to stuff. So like, obviously, well, let's pass them here. I'm gonna cast this Squadron Hawk. It's pretty unlikely that I'm actually going to ever want to respond to this trigger. I guess it's not going to let me auto yield to this because I don't have another land in play, but you should basically just be auto yielding to most triggers of your own. Probably not ones of your opponents, but that's a good general rule to get into. Okay, so a few other things. These are the settings page up here. I generally turn all my sound to 0. I think a sound can actually lag your game. I'm not 100% certain that that's the case, but I believe it's the case. If you have sound on, it will actually lag your game a bit. And I have all these animations off, obviously, because they just look terrible. And then, where is it at? Here. If you go in here, you can make sure you have this not checked. And then basically you want, I think, none of these checked. You can, yeah, basically want none of these checked. If you turn this on, what it will do, I think I actually had this on by, earlier because my settings got reset, but it will make you stack your abilities. So if you have like 3 faithful triggers, for example, it'll make you put each one onto the stack individually, which is very, very time consuming. Okay, and then a couple other things. So I am not actually 100% certain that this lags your game, but I think it might. So the more cards you have, where's it at? Let me reset here. So I only have 5,000 cards, which is not very many. But I'm pretty sure that the more cards you have, the more it will lag your game. So what you can do, you can go here. That's lagging a bit. You go type in Shredder. So you go like these 3 bots. If you just have extra random commons that you're not going to use from like playing sealed or limited or whatever, you can sell them to these bots. And I do think it actually makes your game load quicker, and at least when you restart, which is nice. Just because I think it has to it wants to load in all these cards when you open your collection. And then I'm not exactly sure if this is true for decks as well, but I think deleting extra decks also will help your game load faster. And if you want to delete decks faster, what you can actually do is you can hold shift and it'll select multiple of these. And you can like control click. Or you can just like control click a bunch of these. I think that should work. Let's see. Control click, control click. Yeah, so you can select multiple of these. And you can hit delete selected decks, and it'll ask you if you want to delete all these decks. So you don't have to individually go in and delete each one. Because I know for me at least the my decks tend to pile up quite a bit. Let's see, do I have anything else here? Oh yeah, restarting Magic Online. So I think there's just a memory leak in general with triggers on Magic Online. And so generally, if you notice that your game's starting to lag, you should just be restarting your game in between rounds or whatever. But yeah, I think overall the most important thing as far as playing faster is being comfortable using the hotkeys, and like F2 saves a lot of time. And then also just having stops that you don't mess with very much. Just you have good muscle memory with the stops. And then just playing a lot and getting used to the interface also helps. Okay, one thing I failed to mention is that when you have dual lands in play, lands that can tap for more than one mana, if you hold W, it will auto tap them for a type of mana. For dual lands, like for example, if I have a Tundra, I think it generally taps for the leftmost mana on the card. Basically, each land has an auto like default mana. So for example, the gates, like if I hold W and left click, it'll make blue. Whereas if I left click, I have to choose one of these. You can also do like all these cards blue if you want to tap a bunch of cards for blue. But if you hold W, it saves you time because you can just left click. You don't have to tap for mana. And so just memorizing like what the default mana source for every land you play in your deck will save you some time. And so like if I have 4 of these in play and I want to cast a Guardian of the Guildpact, I would left click one, make white, and then I'd hold W and then left click 3 times to make blue for the rest of them, and I could cast the Guardian of the Guildpact. And then one other thing I also failed to mention is the undo button. So let's say I add blue here. Like, oh no, I wanted to add white. So what you do is you can right click undo, which also works, but you can also Control Z, which doesn't use your mouse, which is generally gonna be faster. So if I just Control Z, it'll undo the mana, and you can undo lots of different things, but that is a thing that will also save you time. Instead of right click undo, you can just Control Z.